wonderful polyhedral pieces of plastic that you roll on the table, which I'm going to show you in a minute because all of my dice are on the table, and it's pretty hard for me to like roll dice right in front of you looking at the camera like this. I have obsessive dice disorder, and I can't seem to stop buying them because every once in a while I'll come across a cool set. Let's see, this one, this set of clear dice. Yeah, this set of clear polyhedral dice contains all of the dice, all types of dice that you will need to play a game of Dungeons and Dragons. Now, this little baggie full of dice right here, you know, it's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. So my theory is, if you've ever played a game of Dungeons and Dragons, there's times when you have to roll multiples of the same dice, say in a damage situation, like or a spell damage, or even just weapon damage. And then there's times when you have to roll, you make your attack roll or ability check, whatever, at advantage or disadvantage. So I thought I'd talk about the different types of dice, different styles of dice, I guess. I personally don't own a lot of like fancy dice, but I know there's some premium ones out there. Now, I guess we could go to the table, and we'll start to take a look at some of these different types of dice. Okay, so here we have a pretty big pile of dice, if you ask me. These ones are the ones that I'm currently using for online Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, so these are by no means all my dice, but you can see that I do have like a couple D20s in there. Got, you know, a bunch of D6s. Ones here are casino dice, I believe. Anyway, this is not all of the dice that I own. Oh no. You know, I could probably get away with all my gaming that I do with this set of dice, but yeah, I got a few more actually. And as you can see here, it's a much bigger pile of dice. Now let's take a look. Yeah, we do got lots of other colors in there too. Oh, there's some greens that I missed in the back there. Yeah, I got all shapes and sizes of dice. You want to have a lot of dice, don't you? Because, I mean, if you've been rolling that same D20, hey, I got a 20, over and over again, and you're coming up ones, like, all the time, it's time to maybe move over to another D20, try something else, you know. And then when you roll for advantage, too, it's much easier to just roll the two of them at once. Yeah, there's just something about picking up a whole handful of dice and rolling some damage with that. See what you get. But it's always nice to have a big pile on the table. This is a little too big to have on the table, but you should have, as a accommodating DM, you should have a bunch of dice available. However, I do recommend, as a player, you should also own a good complement of dice, which leads me to this. I have a bunch more dice sets in bags here. Yeah, I'm going to try and sell these, because, I mean, realistically, what do I need all these dice for? Like, would I ever need to generate a number between 757 and 2 billion? Like, I have no idea. The D4. Okay, it's got 4 sides. It's like a triangle, but with other triangles. It's a tetrahedron. That's what it is. It's also serves nicely as a caltrop, if you know what I'm saying. You've stepped on Legos before. Have you ever stepped on one of these? This is a little less forgiving. I mean, I know that Lego has like a little bit sharper edges, stuff like that, but this is like designed to like really mess up your foot. That's a 4. Okay, try again. That's a 1. Then I have this type of die. I wonder if you can see that, where it's got the numbers are kind of different. The numbers they're at the angles at the edges. So whatever number is facing up at the top of the pyramid, tetrahedron rather, that's the number you roll. So let's see what we got there. Okay, I gotta move it in. And we also got a 1. There you go. Yeah, they look like pyramids. They're really pointy, so you don't want to step on these guys in the dark. Also, D4s. What is it used for? But for Dungeons and Dragons, this is most commonly used for the damage from a dagger, which I believe is a 1d4. Wizards used to get 1 to 4 hit points. And you would roll this, and my wizard is going to be starting with, read the bottom, 1 hit point. Well, what do you know? That kind of sucks. Yeah, D4s, you know, I gotta admit I don't use them that much, but every once in a while there's like some monster, creature, that has a weapon or an effect, damage dealing effect, that uses D4s to calculate the damage, which I think is really weird, but yeah, it's alright. Then you got your D6. Now, a lot of people would just call this a die or dice. But because it is, when you see something that looks like this, you think automatically, oh, dice. And yeah, you're not wrong. This one happened to come from Fitzgerald's Casino Hotel in Reno. I've been to Reno, and I didn't buy these there, but 6s. Now you can see I've got some that have the numbers, and others that have just the pips. That's right, those little dots, that's what they're called. They're called pips. Deal with it. Now, there's... This type of die is most commonly rolled either in pairs or in like large multiples, or sometimes just, you know, singly, I don't know. It's a very frequently used die in D&D. I don't want to have more than one. There's a lot of spells that deal multiple D6s, such as a fireball, which is when you're going to probably want to invest in a whole bunch of extra D6s like this. Used to be the die that rogues would roll for their hit points. Not anymore, though. They've been beefed up a little bit, which is really good. And there's a lot of weapons use D6s for damage as well. Spear does D6. Scimitar does D6. Short sword does D6. It's a very versatile die. You'll find yourself using these a lot in D&D. Yeah, this is the most commonly used type of dice on the planet. You'll find it in Trivial Pursuit. You'll find it in Monopoly. A set of 2, actually, in Monopoly. Clue, Payday. What are some other common games? I don't know. You use them in backgammon, I think. People shoot craps and gamble on the street with them. And even the pirates in Pirates of the Caribbean used D6s. But they're called D6s. They're not just called dice. Although they are dice, you should be more specific and say, hey, let's play a rousing game of D6s. Oh, and Yahtzee. I forgot Yahtzee. Yahtzee's got 5 of these. Okay, this one here, this one baffles a lot of people. This is the D8, an 8-sided die. Now, it's basically just two, like, pyramids, well, true pyramids, I guess, like, you know, Egypt pyramids, smushed together, top to bottom, like so. So it's kind of like, oops. Yeah, so whenever you need to generate a number between 1 and 8, you would use one of these. Now, curious that the two sides are next to each other. Oh, I never noticed that. Is it the same on this one? Yes, it is. Oh my god. Learn something new about your dice every day. 1, 4, 5, 8. 2, 7, 6, 3. 1, 4, 5, 8. 2, 7, 6, 3. That is so weird. Actually, I just had no idea that they were always like printed in a certain pattern. Whatever. It is probably a one of the more commonly used damage dice. The D8 and the D6, I think, are the most common for rolling damage. Just think of this one as the pointy, sort of flat one, because it sits pretty flat. Yeah, or the diamond shape, or whatever you want to use to describe it. D8s, get some. You got your D10. Generate a number from 1 to 10. 1, 2, 0. 0 representing 10. Why they didn't put 10 on the die, do you ask? Well, that's because if you roll them in pairs, then you could say, okay, this one first, this one second. You can generate a number between 1 and 100 with this. 7 and 3. 73. You always have to pick the same one to go first, though. 1 and 7. 17. Anyway, you get the gist of that. It's not that hard to remember. These ones are also the ones that look, and if I can do it correctly, spin like a top. So if you're ever not sure, is this a D8 or just a D10, you can spin a D8, but it doesn't have that same top-like effect. Let's try it again, see if I can get her going here. There we go. Let's try this other one. Yeah. It's fun for hours. This and building dice towers while your DM is talking. This is a weird one. Well, it's not that weird, but it's uncommon, actually. This is the least commonly used Dungeons and Dragons die, at least in my experience. This is the D12. Now, the D12 generates numbers from 1 to 12. It is so satisfying when you're rolling one of these to see that 12 pop up. You know, ones always suck though, right? This one is most often used for large weapons or great weapons, two-handed weapons that require two hands and great strength to wield. So, hey, what we get? We got a 1. Well, ain't that freaking great. Yeah, D12s. This is the one die that I don't think you would ever need to have more than, let's say, 2 of these. Maybe 3. I couldn't even think of a... Because there's so few things that actually roll multiple D12s as damage. And in the case of, like, you roll a critical hit and you roll extra dice, it's usually not more than 1 extra die. Anyway, it's a D12. Barbarians use this for their weapons, very commonly, and also for their hit points, to generate their hit points, because of course they get more hit points than anybody else in the game. And they roll a d12, which is pretty sweet, especially at first level. And for that reason, I would call these the barbarian dice. But they're basically the least used dice in Dungeons and Dragons. Those poor d12s. A lot of people get these mixed up, though. Mixed up with the most important and most frequently used dice in D&D. I'm going to show you a couple here side by side. Of course, they're different colors, but from a little bit further back, it might be hard to tell the difference between these two. So you got to look a little closer. These ones have flatter sides, that's how I would describe it, whereas this one's a little bit more rounded, and it has a 20 on it. All the way to 20, baby. This is your most commonly used die in Dungeons and Dragons. This is the one you would roll to see if you succeed at something. Make attack rolls with it. You make ability checks with this. You make saving throws with this. You're going to be asked to roll this die a bunch of times, probably in your first Dungeons and Dragons game. It's probably the first die that you're going to roll. It's pretty straightforward, although I should mention that you're definitely going to want to have more than one of these, at least in my experience, at least two. Because now, in the current rules of the game, you're going to want to have that extra die for situations where you have advantage or disadvantage. If you roll both at the same time, and if you have advantage, you pick the higher number. 8 and a 7. Oh, that's fantastic. So you would pick the 8. If you're rolling a disadvantage, say it's harder for you to do something, then you got to take the lower number. So in that case, it would be a 7. Now that's something you play it once or twice, you get that mechanic, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But I don't know how many times I've seen people try to cheat doing this with advantage. It's like, oh, I just had the 1d20. Okay, it's a 19. Okay, in that case it actually was a 19. But say it came up as like a 4 or something like that. Oh, okay, I rolled a that and then a that. And then you could say, okay, well, what was the first number you rolled? Or they could just say what it is and hopefully snatch it up before anybody actually sees it. You dirty cheating scumbag. Don't play D&D like that. Nobody likes that. If you just want to win, this is the wrong game for you. Because you don't really win in Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, you can succeed at things and you can do well, but there's no winners. And if you roll your dice like that and you cheat at rolling dice like that, you're a loser. Okay, so of course now I got to mention that I have a couple of specialty dice. Not many. I know I have some other ones that are buried in the boxes of various board games, things like that. Fantasy flight games, such as X-Wing miniatures battles. That one uses its own dedicated dice. That's basically are D8s, and they just have special symbols on them. This one, of course, is a D6, and it's got special symbols on it. I honestly don't know if this came from a particular game, or if this is a, what you would call a scatter die. Let's see. Well, basically it gives you like directions and things like that. So you roll it on the table, and so say you throw a grenade or something like that, or you throw a projectile and you perhaps miss. Then you have to roll this die to see which direction that it goes off into erroneously, I guess. And then there's also there's a target, so it's like, oh, you actually did hit the bullseye, you actually got it. Or it lands in any of these crazy random directions, whatever's facing up on the die. So this isn't one of the ones you can roll and then move around. This is one you roll on the table. In the midst of battle, you've got all your figures and combatants right there, and you say, okay, I want to throw a fireball right in there. Well, you missed, or well, you don't make a hit roll with a fireball, but well, you missed your target. But what happens here? Well, it just goes to this guy standing right here, I guess. I suppose that's how it works. I don't really use this one very much. It's neat, but I don't know. I usually have my game board. Our miniatures are usually set up in combat formation, and I'm not going to like bowl them all over with this die. But you know, sort of, I could roll it off to the side and, you know, just use that general direction. Useful, I guess. Maybe not so much for me, but I could see this being useful for a lot of people, especially, I think it actually is like a Warhammer die. I have no idea. But hey, it's cool, and I'll use it again sometime. I have used it before, and I will again. Anyway, there's that one. And then I've got, oh, look, another D6, but no. It is a all sixes. No, they're all twos. 6 and 2. This is like a D2, I guess, is what you could say, because it's only gonna be one of two numbers. So I use this as my 50-50 die, right? I say, okay, well, there's you got two guys in battle right here. These two. And I have an opponent that wants to attack. I have an opponent that wants to attack one of these two characters, but I can't make up my mind as a DM which one of these two I want to wipe off the board. So I would roll my handy 50-50 die. So on a 2, well, let's make it make sense. On a 2, it'll hit this guy. On a 6, it'll hit the 6, right? That's only because I'm using that to do it. Okay, so it's 50-50, so it hits this guy. I'm sure you get the... Didn't need the demonstration. I'm sure you get the gist of that. It's not that hard to understand. This one is a D30, I believe. So this, you can generate a number between 1 and 30 on this. I think that was a 1. I just picked it up right away. I'm a cheater. This one, it tends to roll quite a bit because it's got so many little sides. Let's see, what did I get? 5. But I can see that 20. But 20 isn't even the maximum you can get on there. I mean, there's a 22, there's a 25, 28, and where is it now? Well, it's got to be in here somewhere. 30. 30, right there. Yeah, that's what I don't like about these speckled dice, is super hard to read the numbers sometimes. I mean, it doesn't help that my camera sucks and there's like glare and light bouncing all over the place, but even, you know, at the best of times it's hard to read this number. I don't even know what that says. Well, we're so out of focus. Oh, what is that, 22? 23? Yeah, anyway, I've heard that this one is used for Magic the Gathering, and you just, for some reason you need something that goes from 1 to 30, and you actually just leave this on the table. You don't roll it, you just move it to the different sides, or some weird-ass thing like that. I don't know, I don't want to play Magic the Gathering, I don't care, but I suppose I could use this for, say I want a particularly deadly enemy, but a wide random chance to see whether he, to see how much damage he does or something like this. Yeah, maybe roll 2d30s. So there's a possibility of 2 damage, or 60 damage, or somewhere in between. That's enticing. I might have to get another one of these. I just bought it because I was like, oh, that's cool. Never rolled that for a game of Dungeons and Dragons yet, but I'll think about it. This one's my favorite. The emotion die. Basically, your dungeon master would roll this when you're interacting with NPCs and you're not sure how the NPC should react. Yeah, so it's got all different. Oh, neutral. Winky face. Naughty. What does that mean exactly? And smiley face with eyebrows. Then we got sad face. Then we got grumpy face. And I know there's another one in there here. And then we got evil face. Whoa, you can tell he's evil. Look at those eyebrows. Yeah, so this one's one of my favorite. Like, let's see, how are we feeling today? Well, I'm feeling pretty sad face. I've used this in games a lot. It's easier than calculating a bunch of numbers, right? Sad time. Sad. Oh, come on. Don't you want to play some Dungeons and Dragons and roll me? Well, that sounded really weird. How about, no, screw you? Or, happy. It looks like kind of happy and kind of like strung out on something. And this guy's up to no good. And that guy's just angry. Not just grumpy, but angry. Neutral. If I don't make it, Sergeant, tell my wife I said hello. This is the funnest die. I could spend an hour just doing this. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be the best video ever? If you have played more than 5 games of Dungeons and Dragons and you don't own at least one set of polyhedral dice, you're not committed. I'm sorry. Because if that's the case, you probably don't own a player's handbook either. And that's another pet peeve of mine for longtime players is, come on, get the player's handbook already. It's not that hard to get. Like, people are very superstitious about dice. They don't want other people using their dice. Me, personally, I don't care because I have enough that it doesn't really matter to me. I have a few, though, that I will not let anybody else touch. So, just saying. And that's part of the fun of it, is of Dungeons and Dragons, is rolling dice. So, go get some. You know?